Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about how to work with different sorts of players. Sometimes people are different, and we have to give them different motivations, different things to work with. We got this article. Where did we get it?
Oh, I found this on, it's a wiki called the Shatar Europe, EU. It's not mainly like a D&D site, but I thought the article was pretty cool and it had a lot of interesting descriptions.
So we'll leave the link on the description below, and
You can check that out.
check that out. And these archetypes, like every archetype, they're not necessarily perfectly encompassing. People have some elements of some of this side, some of this other side. But as a general guideline, you can use this as a reference.
You got your peanut butter on my chocolate and your chocolate on my peanut butter.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, but it's tasty. The point of it all has to be tasty and fun.
I'm Eugene.
And I'm Eddie.
We are the Middle-Aged Barbarians.
So to start, I think the first archetype that I like to focus to deal about would be the power gamer. Who is the power gamer?
I'm pulling out my cheat sheets.
You do that.
I'm doing it.
The power gamer is this guy that wants to win. It's mainly his motivation. They kind of see the game as something to be won. And in a way, it is, because you have challenges, you have answers to the challenges. But, well, how would you deal with that?
How would I deal with that? I am that.
You are that.
Yeah, and the power gamer is the min-maxer. He's going to look through all the options. He's going to try to figure out how to be, I'm going to talk a little bit in 4th edition terms. Forgive me, evil producer, but if you're going to be a striker, you be the best striker. If you're going to be a defender, be the biggest tank you can be. So he's going to scour through races and classes and feats and options and backgrounds and just try to build together this perfect creature.
This beautiful machine that can mechanically work with everything, which is fine. This is good, but one has to be careful not to overshadow some other players that perhaps do not have that same hyper focus. Or if you have full table of mixed maxers, you can do some very interesting mechanical stuff against them. Like you are also as a DM, you can be a mixed maxer, a power gamer, and make your monsters mechanically very unusual as to set a balance with that.
You talk about overshadowing, but I think nobody overshadows more than the storytelling actor, that kind of archetype.
Yeah, that's a different sort of archetype. Who is this person? I mean, we're thinking specifically of a friend of ours who's the greatest.
Oh, I know a couple of them. Yeah, no.
What would an architect, what would they do? They usually they don't mind the mechanical part of the table, the power gamer does, and they just go for the role-playing part of the game.
I mean, it's cool because they'll take a lot of time and they'll do like this whole extensive backstory for their character and figure out, oh, my grandfather belonged to this part and his father was this, and then my father did this, and my mother and the sister and the cousins, and I grew up, and they'll do this like 10, 12-page story for a level 1 character. And when they get into it, they're real histrionic. They want the limelight. They love it, which is good. I mean, it's cool. But
it's not just a one-person game at the end of as well as the caveat we had with the power gamer. You have to give them a spot to shine. For instance, most of these players tend to be the face role, the sort of role that is good with skills, is good with talking, the diplomat of the group. Yeah, give them a couple of encounters where their diplomacy skills save the day. But at the end of the day, it should not all be about them. There's no protagonists in this story. Well, but there's also another archetype that kind of defeats a little bit this, but because there's some players that mainly do the watching. How do you work with them?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, the article calls them literally the watchers. Well, see, the thing with the watcher is you can see the player sitting at the table, seemingly not engaged not paying attention maybe, or not participating as much. There could be a lot of different reasons for that. But the cool thing is, I mean, usually the watcher is like a very passive player, but they're enjoying it a lot. They're taking in everything. When you can notice this is like after the game. The watcher will be like, "Oh man, that part where we jumped in and we did this and and they love it and they're just so enthusiastic about it." I mean, it's cool. And here, one of the things the article does say, because it'll give you tips about how to kind of like mitigate any problems these type of players can bring to the table, is just make sure that the watcher doesn't distract people with out of context stuff. Because it's like the guy that can be maybe sitting there, hear something, and then remember a joke. And since they're not that into the game, maybe, then they'll just like bring in the outside joke or...
Yeah, and I will also add the outside of play, talking about the game, because that's where the watcher really shines. A lot of the times, some even take notes or have very good memories of what happened because they weren't in the thick of it.
It's funny you should say take notes, because the article mentions a type of character that I, as a DM, love, because they will get you out of like just this lapses of not remembering what happened, and it's the storyteller. The storyteller, I would think, was like more maybe akin to the actor. Like they're all about the narrative and the story and the relationships and all that, but they go a step further, and they'll jot down what we did. They'll do like a blog, an adventure blog, and write down the story, and they'll know where they went, who they spoke to, which is great because I always forget NPC names and stuff. And they'll keep notes and all that. And then when you start up the session, you can even, you can take advantage of that and be like, "Hey, Kimberly, remember what we did last game? Tell everybody what we did," and just kind of recap. And
of course,
you can just
as you can see, we're very responsible DMs sometimes. But yeah, it's important. As you can see, there are many factors on every game: the story, the mechanics, and one has to keep sort of balance between them, I guess.
I'm switching my notes. I've got 2 left. How many you got left?
I do not have notes because that's the sort of DM I am. Prepared DM I am.
The Explorer.
The Explorer is a variant of a storyteller, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, but the Explorer is there for the mystery. They're there for the rich narrative of the abandoned temple in the middle of the jungle that hasn't been seen by humanoid eyes in millennia, and they love all that cool, like being able to discover something within the game, and hearing
traveling. Traveling is also very important. A couple of friends of mine are literature majors, and travel is even a whole genre of literature. So
maybe like reaching a new kingdom with different customs, and the marketplace has different items for sale, or like really local niche things, and be able to describe that to them and have them hear it, and that's what they like. That whole real deep fantasy part of it, and imagining.
Yeah, remember, it's slightly different than the. It's slightly different than the. It's slightly different than story because this is not the narrative. This is world building. So in a way, this is the equivalent of the DM that makes a whole world to explore, and the players, maybe the power gamer, would not care, and they just want to fight.
No.
Also, something a little bit akin to the power game is the thinker, which is kind of a variant of the idea of winning the game. But this guy, rather than throwing a bunch of die or making this mechanical behemoth of a perfect, beautiful machine like the ones Eugene builds, he does build some very interesting mechanical stuff. He'd rather just do the out of left field solution sometimes. Perhaps would be the guy that's so good at diplomacy that every combat becomes a parlay rather than a fight, or I set up traps days ago and I fixed it, or solving every problem in novel and interesting ways.
You just have to worry. I think with that kind of player, would be to try to avoid like meta thinking or metagaming, and because they're real like, oh, I know what monster this is because I've been playing for 20 years and I know their weaknesses, but Your character doesn't. So
Exactly. You have to, and also, which is also a problem in other sorts of games, it's the alpha player problem. A lot of cooperative games, which at the end of the day, Dungeons and Dragons is a cooperative game of sorts. A lot of cooperative games have this problem that the alpha player is this guy that, yeah, okay, I have these powers. Eugene has these powers. The evil producer has many evil powers, and we're gonna use these powers like so, like so, like so, and do this, everybody.
It's like the backseat gaming for everybody.
That's not cool. That's not fun.
Yeah.
Unless everybody is in the same. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about fun. So yeah, that's kind of the slight problems that we could have with him. Put him in not in a box per se, but put some reins into them. But they're very interesting because they do come up with very clever solutions that you didn't think of, and that's part of the fun. You have to be surprised as well as, oh, I didn't think nobody would do this. Who would think that jumping outside the window of the burning building would be the clever idea rather than trying to escape through the hallways?
And navigating all these challenges and dangers that I had placed in front of him.
No, yeah, I'll just jump outside the window. That's
It's a 60-foot drop. Doesn't matter. I'll rage before I hit the ground and take half damage.
yeah, sure.
Brush it off.
Yeah, that's a clever solution, and well, at the end of the game, it's part of the game doing this.
I got one left on my list, and that is the Slayer. I like Slayers.
I'm thinking it's the same. It's like Power Gamer painted with a new coat of paint, but
No, they're related, but the Slayer gets like more enjoyment of just vanquishing everything in front of them. I think this would be like the antithesis to the actor. The actor is like very heavy in narration, and the Slayer is kind of like, no, just let me get into the fight. Actually, I hope you mess up your diplomacy check so I can fight all these people here and destroy everyone. There's like a little bloodlust thing going there with the Slayers.
which is related to instigating, which I think it's the last archetype I missed in my sheets that are hidden here, which is the player that wants to get the things going along. A lot of players, I mean, one of the most enjoyable campaigns I've played, the players completely ignore the actual point of the quest that I put up to them, and they decided to become landlords in a small town, and the adventures became about that. It kind of became sort of the adventures started coming to them because they wouldn't leave the small town they adopted. But the instigator, what would the instigator do in this case if they see that they're getting comfortable in this small village and trying to build stuff? They'll probably do something rash, something violent to...
I mean, I can imagine them sabotaging and hiring, or maybe getting a group of monsters or goblins to come in and attack their town, so then they'd have to do some action and combat. Actually, in one of the previous groups I was in, the party had been kind of like dealing with the really evil character in the story that they know is doing no good, but they don't have like a legit reason to go after this person yet. And in one of the sessions, I mean, I had joined like mid-campaign, and in one of the sessions, this guy who had already gotten the players into a lot of sticky situations, I mean, the DM is narrating a situation that sounds like it's bad. You're going to be like surrounded by 4 guards flying on wyverns, and then the captain's in the middle. You know, he's forcing your hand, so you can kind of play along. I think we lasted 5 minutes, and then the instigator was just like, nah, man. My artificer takes out his, I don't know what he has, some kind of weird plasma rifle, and just started shooting at the wyverns. Needless to say, the artificer did not survive that encounter. Nah.
How will you deal with him, balance with him? Do you deal with him outside the game, in the game?
We ended up talking to him after the game. I mean, like, dude, just chill a little bit. And we kind of had to call everybody out. Like we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, these are not just one kind of player that you can choose, or like one style of playing that you choose. You're going to have different flavors mixed together. So in the party, we had the actor, we had the thinker, we had the storyteller, we had the slayer, instigator, and we kind of talked to everybody at the same time. It was like, all right, I understand you guys want to talk, but it seems like all we're doing is talking. So then you kind of have to talk to the actor and bring it down a little bit. and then the DM decided, all right, well, I'm going to change this up a little bit and change it for the next sessions and encounters, and try to make some of them more dynamic, more action-oriented, and then do other ones that are political and diplomatic and all that jazz.
Yeah, I have noticed that since I've gotten older, campaigns tend to be a little bit more about blah, 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 but I mean, it's part of changes in taste. But yeah, you have to have a little bit of everything, I guess.
Yeah. And it helps. It helps to know what kind of players are sitting at your table. Like we mentioned, there's 8 in this article. Please go check out the link below. Read it. It's interesting. But it's not tell-all. It's not like end-all, tell-all. Is that the way they say it?
Yeah. Yes, and players you can see. And we were just talking about this off camera. I had a friend that I haven't played with him in a bit. Gene has played with him now. And he used to be like this big watcher. Now he changes his role. He evolved. He no longer is just a watcher. He kind of does more of, what do we say his role in this group is? His style.
He is the out of context jester. He's the guy always making the inappropriate jokes at the inappropriate time.
Yeah, sort of a thinker sort of type. Weird sort of thinker. So yeah, we got these differences and we evolve, we change. But at the end of the day, it's all about fun.
Yeah, get to know your players, try to work with them, work around them, have them work for you a little bit when you can.
And as a DM, it's also important that you have your own style. I mean, you've seen it. Gene is more of a power gamer, I guess. What would you say I am? I'm sort of more of a storyteller, sort of...
Impromptu storyteller, ad-libbing.
I love ad-libbing. Yeah, it's my thing. I kind of build a little skeleton and I work on that, and I love doing that. And I forget stuff, so it's good to have somebody who takes notes for me.
All right. Well, I think this has been today's episode. As usual, we'd really appreciate it if you leave your comments, questions, any complaints below in the comment section. Like, subscribe.
And as usual,
rate responsibly.
Rate responsibly, friends.
Roll the dice!